Hello and welcome to SweetSpotDFS. This is a preview for the 2021 Arnold Palmer Invitational. Now, this is the second leg in the Florida swing as it usually is. However, this year is a little different. You know, the WGC Workday Championship, which was a new title for this year, moved from Mexico to Florida. That became the first leg in this Florida swing. Usually it's the Honda. The Honda actually moves to the last leg of the Florida swing. So we will have WGC Workday. Now we have the Arnold Palmer. Next week we have the Players, and the week after we have the Honda. Now, all of these golf courses, we didn't know about the concession last week, but that proved to be a pretty difficult track. I mean, the winning score was still minus 18, but there was a lot of volatility with all the water. These other three golf courses coming up are exactly the same type of I don't want to say the same type of golf course because they all work a little different, but the volatility will be high. Expect, target scores, winning scores to be somewhere between 11 to 15 under. So your grinded out golfers are probably going to be the golfers you want to hammer down on. I mean, Tyrrell Hatton won this last year at 4 under. I think Sung Jae Im was really close behind him. So I think that's the type of golfer we want to target. Now, in this preview, I'm going to talk about the tournament here. We'll talk about a lot of the general information, and then I'm going to change up the format a little bit. Usually, I would just jump into historical salaries, look at optimal lineups as well, and then into the bucket system. I'm going to actually flip that to the back end of this, and first start off with course history, and then grass stats, recent form, and then go salaries and bucket system. That way, if you're new to the channel, welcome. But that is my bread and butter, is the bucket system. So I'm going to leave that to the end. I do want this to be more of a general overview, a pretty generic preview, but I want to show you all the stats. That's what I like to do too. I don't want to tell you, hey, this golf course, it really matters about course history, and not give you anything to look at. So that's one of my pet peeves, seeing that throughout the industry. I get it. Some people can't show it, but that's what you're going to get here. You're going to find timestamps in the description, but you can also find them on the progress bar. They're cut up into segments. Just hover over them and it'll tell you which segment is what. Let's go ahead and start actually with the tournament fact sheets. I forgot to mention that, but we'll start here. I'll talk a little bit about the tournament. It's 123 people or players in the field this week. It's top 65 in ties make the cut, so half of the field. Making 6 of 6 through the cut, it's going to be a little bit easier this week, just based off of numbers alone. It could be tricky. Some of the favorites might miss the cut, and that's how we don't have a lot of 6 of 6s. But usually when the field's smaller, it's easier to make 6 of 6 through the cut. We've had 3 withdraws, but I don't remember any notable names. I think Davis Love III was one of them. But definitely keep an eye on that in your DraftKings lobby. I think last week Patrick Cantlay was owned 3%, and he withdrew. He actually withdrew, I think, on a Tuesday night. So, still gave you enough time to replace him. But either way, keep your eye on withdrawals. I really haven't seen anything. We'll get into this tournament fact sheet, but then I'll also bring up weather. I forgot to mention that. And then we'll go from there. So, tournament fact sheet. This is what the grounds crew, or the superintendent, Golf Course Superintendent Association of America, the superintendent, or the director of grounds, as it's called at the Arnold Palmer Invitational, will send this to the PGA Tour, or the GCSAA will send this to the PGA Tour to provide them with how the tournament will be set up. You guys can visit this, and visit this website. You guys can see for yourself all the information I'm showing, but I'm going to show it all. So we are at the Bay Hill Club and Lodge in Orlando, Florida. It's a par 72, 36 on both sides, 7,400 yards, which is, I think, pretty standard on tour, and a stimp meter of 12. We had that stimp meter of 12 last week. I anticipate these greens are going to be rolling pure. They're going to be rolling fast. They're going to be firm. I think there's supposed to be rain today and tomorrow. I'm not sure. I don't live in Florida. I live in Minnesota, so I'm just not sure. Either way, those are your basic statistics. The course statistics themselves, we have green size average of 7,500 square feet. I think we saw that last week and also at the Riviera. To give a little bit of a comparison, Pebble Beach is 3,500 square feet. I think average around tour, I don't have those stats in front of me, otherwise I would provide them. I think it's around like 6,000 to 6,500 for average green size. I could be wrong. Maybe it's around 7. So I would imagine these are a little larger than standard. Just means green and reg is going to be a little easier to achieve unless, you know, weather ends up making it a nightmare, which it obviously could. Also, what might be a nightmare is the amount of water hazards in play. Hole 18 is a famous golf hole that Tiger Woods has won a couple tournaments by making a fantastic putt. But yeah, water is one of those things that you definitely have to keep an eye on, like how much water is on a golf course, because your high volatility golfers, you know, the ones that can either shoot 20 under one day, or not one day, 20 under one tournament, and then followed up with a miscut and be like 2 over when everyone else is under par. Those are your types of golfers. You're really going to have to weigh, you know, do you want to play them or not because of the water that's present at this golf course. So, I mean, for me, if you're trying to win a GPP, it's definitely worth the risk. But if you're playing a cash lineup, stay away from the golfers who make a lot of penalties. Yeah, that's my words of wisdom. Turf grass is interesting. You know, at the Concession Golf Club, that's south of Tampa. This golf course is in Orlando. I had mentioned I wasn't sure if it was going to be Bermuda grass at the Concession Golf Course. I see overseed here. And I have taken agronomy classes. I went to school to be in the golf industry, and part of my schooling required me to take agronomy classes, which is obviously, I mean, we always joke it's the study of grass. But either way, when you see overseed, sure, Bermuda is the base layer, but when Bermuda goes dormant, it's not prevalent whatsoever. The overseed takes over until the growing conditions can get better for Bermuda. When I see overseed, that's the golf course telling us Bermuda is not existent. Now, it's overseed on tees, fairways, and rough. The greens show Tiffigo Bermuda grass. Now, I have to admit, I haven't been in the golf industry for nearly 5 years. I don't know if they've came up with new ways to, I mean, you have a lot of growth regulators. You also have a lot of fertilizer that can do certain things. Maybe they're able to preserve Bermuda throughout the winter. I'm just not sure. I'm still going to use Bermuda stats, but it might be a moot point if the overseed is prevalent. And last week I tried to contact the superintendent at the concession, obviously during the wrong time, because he's obviously, his important thing is getting the golf course ready and maintaining it throughout the entire tournament. He wasn't going to get back to me. So next year, what I have to do, and for the rest of this year, is make sure that I reach the superintendents much earlier than the week of, to try to figure out what exactly the grass is. Because I've been pretty hesitant I shouldn't say hesitant, but I don't know the word I'm looking for. Like, I'm not sure, you know, and I don't want to say, oh yeah, it's a Bermuda grass. Obviously, that is the base layer, but I'm not gonna keep hounding you guys with that. Just, I don't know. We'll see. The architect is Dick Wilson. Have not seen any of his work on tour. Renovation architect is Arnold Palmer. I don't know exactly how much, you know, really changed with his renovation in 2009. You can see some of the other additional notes here, but let's go ahead and look at the weather. So I have Orlando, Florida, as you can see up here. Tuesday, you can see PM showers as well as talking about. Wednesday, it looks like AM thunderstorms, and then it's going to be pretty decent until Saturday. It looks like we might get some more rain, or the tour might get some more rain. But obviously that'll be after the cut. I don't really care about looking at weather on Saturday and Sundays unless I'm trying to anchor my team with a high price golfer. So let's say Rory this week. Does Rory play, does he typically play bad in the wind or in bad weather? This would be a good reason to fade him. Likewise, we have some European golfers. Perhaps that's a reason why you play them, because they're probably more used to that type of weather. Totally up to you guys. I have no idea what the weather's going to look like. I mostly just care about Thursday and Friday. I want to see if there's a split, like a tee time split, that I need to pay attention to. It doesn't look like that's the case. So definitely look at the weather before Wednesday night, before Thursday's morning lock, because that'll give you a little bit better information. Obviously, the forecast will be much closer to the day of the tournament or the start of the tournament, and that's going to matter more. Okay, let's go ahead and dive into the spreadsheet. Now, the very first thing I want to talk about are basically a target score to look at. If we look at every single year, and the target score is the winning score, of course, every single year we see, around, I guess it varies. I want to say the average is 12 to 13 under. We see 13 and 12 a bunch of times. Obviously, you can see 17, 19, even 18 under. Last year it was 4 under. It was cold. It was windy. It was definitely a grinded out session for that tournament in 2020. So, and by the way, this was the last tournament, full tournament before the COVID shutdown. Which is, it's crazy. We're all the way back here. I think I did really well with the Arnold Palmer last year. So hopefully we can still do well this year, or hopefully that comes back. I even went out and bought the Puma Arnold Palmer shirt, the new one that came out. I'm sure Ricky, or I'm guessing Bryson's going to be wearing it, but I'm sure Ricky will wear it too. It's pretty cool. And it's got, the Arnold Palmer drink. We have some limes and lemons on it. It's a cool shirt. Anyways, I'm anticipating the target score to be around 12, 13 under again. We do see weather coming in Saturday, Sunday. All this means, find your grinded out golfers, your Jordan Spieths, your Jason Days. Those golfers are in play. Tyrrell Hatton, Matthew Fitzpatrick. Those golfers will be in play this week. Let's go ahead and jump into the course history. So I have this sorted by who's in the field. So 123 golfers. And it's sorted by the average finishing position. You can see Sung Jae dominates this golf course. His last 2 starts, 3rd place and 3rd place. And this is a golf course he should do well at. He is, I would put him in that category of a grinded out golfer. So do like Sung Jae Im. Surprisingly, Keith Mitchell's up there. Now, I would never associate him with the grinded out golfer. He's very volatile. So he's one of those, when I was talking about water, I'm going to be worried about him hitting water. But he could also reward you in the fact that because of his good course history, he could do well here. We see Rory up there. Rory's won this tournament before, has a really good course history. I mean, 27th is his worst finish over the last 6 years. That's pretty darn good. Luke List even shows up. I know he's like a darling for a lot of people. I don't know how I feel about him this year, but you can obviously see the course history on display right now. Francesco Molinari is an interesting play. I've heard his name being talked about and being written about. I don't mind Francesco Molinari. Molinari's been playing pretty decent this year. After his move, after his little hiatus, because he took a little time off, and I think that was good for him. Obviously the Masters played a huge part in that 2 years ago, where he obviously had the lead and vanquished it to Tiger, thankfully. I mean, well, shouldn't say it like that, but I think any of us golf fans really wanted Tiger to win that one, and it was awesome to see. So either way, that played a huge factor. I think he's gotten his mental game back. I think it's a decent play. And we can see Matt Wallace, an Englishman. Weather, again, grinded out golf course. This is good for him. I do like Zeidenhout. It's really interesting that so many people can't get his name right. But yeah, he's a skillful golfer. I don't know if a grinded out golf course or a grinded out tournament is his cup of tea. I haven't seen enough golf of his. I've seen him shoot some low scores. So I almost think he's more of a birdie fest type of golfer. Either way, Christian Bezuidenhout, decent play. You can see some of the rest of the guys. We have Bryson here. Not terrible finishes. 100% cut rate. Definitely worth a decent play. And I'm going to let you guys just read on the screen. Again, my stats go back to 2013, so you're seeing everyone's finishing position. Ricky shows up. He has an 86% cut rate, and we'll go over cut rate pretty soon. Cuts made, that is, not being cut. We see Leishman up here. He's won this tournament, finished second last year when the weather was bad. Another good reason to play. A good reason to play Australians regardless. But let me go ahead and look at here. How about this? Let's look at new timers, guys who've not golfed this golf course yet. One name will stick out more than others, and that's Jordan Spieth. Really weird we have not seen him. I think this is his first time ever playing in this tournament. My stats go back to 2013, but I think he was a rookie in 2015 or 2014. So interesting to see that. Will Zalatoris also shows up here, first timers. I would strongly advise checking out the bucket system to see how people with no course history do at this golf course, like on average. It might persuade you to play some of them. It might persuade you not to. But if we go ahead and look at everyone else, but golfers who've only played this 0 or 1 times, and look at how many top 10s, who is the leader in top 10s? It's Henrik Stenson. Now, Henrik's game, in my opinion, I should say in my opinion, I have no idea how his game is now. I've not paid attention to any of his starts on the European Tour. I do know his last American starts, his last PGA Tour starts, not good. So that's definitely a buyer beware, but you can see he has the most top 10s. He finds success here pretty decent. Rory shows up, so a good reason to maybe anchor your lineups on Rory. Kokrak and Leishman and even Rose show up a bunch. Those are your really only golfers above 3 top 10s. Looking at cuts made percentage, we have a bunch of them here at 100%. Let's go ahead and sort by events played and cuts made. This is probably, to me, the more important stat, because you can see who some of the super consistent golfers at this tournament are. If you're making cash lineups, Keegan Bradley, I don't know. It looks like he's going to make the cut at this tournament every single time, but he's also one of those volatile golfers. I'm not sure how I feel about him. Zach Johnson, Ian Poulter, Billy Horschel. Those are the other golfers that have had 8 events played with 100% cut made. Definitely worth looks. You can see Francesco's up there, Rory, Hideki even. If you were worried about Hideki at this tournament, not the greatest finishing positions over the last 3 years, but still 100% cut made. That goes a long way. Bryson, 100%. And then you can see some of these other guys like Byung-Hun An, John Huh, Tyrrell Hatton, Luke List, Adam Hadwin, Cameron Tringali. These are just guys with 3 or more events played with 100% cut made percentage. I think that would be a decent play. I do want to go from here into grass stats just because it just makes sense. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to hide some of these columns so you can see the screen a little bit better. Let's do this. Can you guys see? Just gonna hide this too. Just gonna open everything now. When I unhide it. Here we go with grass stats. So your best Bermuda golfer in the field is Rory McIlroy. Rory shines on Bermuda golf courses. So obviously Again, not sure if these greens are pure Bermuda or if if there is any overseed on it. I'm sure it would have told us in the tournament fact sheets, but still, Bermuda is Rory's jam. I have no issue playing Rory McIlroy. Christian Bezuidenhout, one event played here on the Arnold Palmer, but a 27 average finishing position on Bermuda tracks. That's pretty decent. You can see the rest of the guys here. I'm not going to go through everybody. One of my big things that I like to do is look at golfers who have an above 5% top 10 percentage. So this is just looking at how many finishes they've had on top 10 Bermuda events, dividing it into the overall Bermuda events they've played to get this percentage. So how frequently do they finish inside the top 10 on Bermuda tracks? You can see Rory, far and away the best golfer in the field, 51.61%. Tommy Fleetwood's at 40. Justin Rose, around 40 as well. Kisner, Day, a lot of these guys kind of, we know this about these golfers. An interesting note, Patrick Reed. I didn't know he had this good of top 10 Bermuda percentage. I thought he was mostly like a POA / bent grass specialist, but doing pretty good with Bermuda stats. And then we see Louis, Henrik, Ricky, even Bryson shows up there. That's interesting. I think some of these guys just have higher percentages than I anticipated. But of course, this also takes into account WGC events. So when there isn't a cut and your worst finishing position is going to be 70th, usually 64th to 73rd, basically, the stats can get a little skewed, a little bit. But here are all of your golfers with under 5%. These are golfers I would probably avoid. Max Homa shows up. I avoided him last week. I'm glad I did. I mean, I didn't do great because I didn't have a lot of Morikawa last week, but there were some fades that I had that absolutely paid off, and obviously Max Homa is one of them. I'm not going to touch Max Homa. Joel Damon had a top 5 finish here, I think, last year. Yep. Yeah, top 5 finish here. That probably was his only top 10 Bermuda event. Well, yeah, if you do the math, 28 divided by 5, I guarantee that's pretty close to 3.57. It probably is 3.57. So one event that he finished inside the top 10 in 28 tries. I think I will pump my brakes on Joel Damon. I'm not going to play him regardless of his 5th place finish here last year. And then you can see some of these other guys with 0%. Maverick McNeely kind of stands out to me. Same with Matthew Neesmith, Doug Gim. I mean, if there was kryptonite to Will Zalatoris' game, it's Bermuda, at least on the PGA Tour. I'm not sure how he's done elsewhere, but I don't know. I don't think I really care to play any Will Zalatoris either, especially at 8,600. Anirban Lahiri, another one. Some of your Euro guys. A lot of these guys, I guess, don't have a lot of events under their belt, so we do have to take that into account for sure. I mean, a lot of these guys are very talented. So I can excuse that. Like I will play some of these guys. It just won't be a lot. And really, out of all of these golfers that are under 5%, that makes up of 23 in the field. So that's a decent chunk you could just exclude from your lineups. Yeah, that would be your top 10. Now, I do believe we have enough Bermuda events this year to actually look at this 2021 Bermuda stat. Rory McIlroy, a 6th place finish. That was last week was his first Bermuda track, I'm pretty sure. The Sony was one. Tournament of Champions was another. So maybe, I'm not sure if Rory was there. I can't remember. But those are your most notable Bermuda events. We also had the RSM Classic, as well as the Bermuda Championship and Sanderson Farms Championship. So those are your 5 or 6 tournaments that had Bermuda stats, and that's where these average finishing positions are coming from. I'm gonna let you guys just look at there. Really interesting seeing Day 12.33. That's decent at 9,200. I'm not sure. I mean, this is a track that he can do well at, but he can also just withdraw like he did last year. I just don't trust Jason Day. I don't think I will play a lot of him. I don't even care if he ends up winning this tournament and I have, 5% or less shares on Jason Day. I would be okay with that. I'm not going to feel bad about it. Okay, so we went through grass stats. Let's talk about recent form. And in a way, I'm kind of going to swerve a little bit. In the past, and I know it hasn't been in the recent past, but in the past, what I used to do was go through every single year, because I have 2020 all the way back to 2013, and just say, hey, pay attention to this this field here, this column right here, the recent form average. It's looking at the last 7 events and basically averaging out their finishing positions. And I would say, hey, take a look at it. What do you see? What stands out? Do you see a lot of green? That's 0 to 20. Do you see a lot of yellow? 20 to 40. Orange is 40 to 60, so on and so forth. But instead of going through every single, instead of going through every single year, what I'm going to do is actually bring up the buckets, because now I'm tracking the recent form and course history through buckets, which I kind of had in the past. I just never presented it to you guys. I can tell you, just looking at the top 10 finishers of every single tournament, that's what you see. That's what the numbers populated in these fields represent. This is the finishing position, or this is the average. This would be your recent form, this bucket here. And then this would be your course history. And you just look at the average finishing position, where it falls into the range, 1 to 20, 20, 40, 40, 60, and the frequency, and then the total. This is going back to 2014. Obviously, the higher number here means it's happened more times. Your highest recent form, golfers who fall in these buckets is 20 to 40 in 40 to 60. Now, if I were to go back every single year and kind of show you, yeah, of course, 20 to 40. Like, how many 20 to 40s do we see inside the top 10? Quite a bit. And then we see just as many 40 to 60s. We kind of see a few, top 20s. But instead of looking at all of this, going through everyone and highlighting every single one, I know I'm the type of person that wants to see that stuff, but to kind of give you a little trust test here, it's all being shown here. So if you already counted at home and saw each one of these, you can see in 2020, we had 3 golfers with 0 to 20 as their recent form. And we had 4 20 to 40 and 4 that were 40 to 60. There's your 0 to 20. There's 3. There's 4 20 to 40s. And there's 4 40 to 60s. So you can see which bucket for recent form matters the most. And it's that 40 to 60 mark. You can see what the min max is over here. That kind of should give you a little bit more of a confidence read on it, like, what you should target. It's not so much, in my opinion, what you should target, it's what you shouldn't just cast out. Recent form between 40 and 60 may not sound good. Like, their average finishing positions between 40 and 60. It may not sound good. But seeing something like this, showing you that the frequency of how often it finishes inside the top 10 should give you a little more confidence not to fade those golfers who have poor recent form. Now, I do have some other numbers here. This is just looking at the rest of the golfers inside the top 10 every single year and seeing which bucket, is more prevalent than the other. 33% of all top 10 golfers from 2020 to 2014 fall under this bucket. But of everyone in that bucket, of all of the fields, it only shows up 9%. In a different way, I also track how many golfers fall under those buckets every single year, and I divide it into what the top 10 number is. So that 9.36, not a very good number, but all it really is telling you is it's going to be difficult to find the right combination of golfer that finished inside the top 10. You could take a different approach and say, I'd rather find the easier route. The 0 to 20, it shows up 26% of the field that falls in that bucket. I'd much rather go with that. So to show you that in a different way, if we go to 2020 and let me slap a filter on this, sort by this, we had 12 golfers that would fit in that bucket. And of the 12, we had 4 that finished inside the top. Well, inside the top 20, we had 3 that finished inside the top 10. We kind of already went through that. So the percentages look better. Obviously, finding 3 golfers here is going to be easier than trying to find 3 golfers in this 40 to 60 because it's pretty large. There are 39 golfers in that bucket. So finding a top 10 or top 20 golfer in here might be a little bit more difficult, or it might be easier. Looking at some of these finishes, I don't know who really would be the best golfer to look at. I'm looking at salaries just to try to find something that pops out right away. Ricky Fowler, 9,300, he finished 18th. So that wasn't terrible. Didn't really pay off his salary, but it didn't hurt you either. He was really he was the most expensive golfer in this bucket. So you could find advantages by not just casting them out. That's essentially what, the bucket system, it's supposed to narrow your player pools. It's also supposed to give you a little bit of light, in playing certain types of players. So yeah, going back to the bucket system, the numbers here, you can see it shows up basically what I showed you, 32 golfers in that 40 to 60 range. That's course history, sorry. It was 39 in the recent form. That is something I should range rank. Yeah, so I'm going to do this just so I don't confuse myself, but also so I don't confuse you guys. And the ranks here, they mean nothing. It's looking at the percentage over here. What's a higher percentage inside each field? So 35% just means of everybody who's played this tournament over the last 14, adding all these up, that bucket makes up 35% of the field. So if you were to include that into one whole field, just means there's a lot more that come out of that bucket, or a lot more that are in that bucket. Also harder to try to find, a winner out of that bucket, or someone who finished inside the top 10, that is. Course history, you can take a look here. Your number 1 bucket. I mean, a lot of people talk about how course history matters here. I can go ahead and confirm it does. Your number 1 bucket are golfers who have that 1 to 20 course history. You can see number 2 is 20 to 40, and number 3 is 40 to 60. Sometimes no course history helps out. Sometimes having that 81, which is usually a missed cut, usually helps out, but not at this tournament. Definitely course history matters. You can see the min maxes. I mean, we never really see less than 3 inside the top 10 that have, really good course history. If we were to look at, the average amount of golfers that actually fall in that bucket, not very high. But you can see, I mean, it nearly makes up 30% of the top 10. It also makes up, the amount of golfers who finish inside the top 10 in this bucket shows up 30% of the time. So that's really good. It's a really good number. You should definitely, I think everyone knew that. Find your golfers with really good course history. Now, this is also saying don't grab everybody that has good course history. So if we go and look at 2021, last week I should have called it tournament history. Someone pointed it out to me, and I was like, oh shoot. But this week it is definitely course history. We have 11 golfers in the field with good course history. That's 0 to 20. I would highly advise not selecting, hey, look, these guys work with Rory. Let me see what the sum is. And Sungjae. That fits, but it's not a really good lineup. It's 49.3. I wonder if I can go like this. Nope. I don't know which way would work best. Close. I need 300 less. So this is a $50,000 lineup right here. Sung Jae, Rory, Luke Lewis, Francesco Molinari, Adam Long, Dylan Fratelli. I'm telling you, don't make that lineup. That's a stupid lineup. Like, just don't do it. I know some of those guys are going to be very enticing, but I mean, unless you're looking for minimal cashes, like minimum cashes, or you're doing a cash lineup or whatever, this isn't going to win you a lot of money. It's just, it might double up your money. That's the max, I feel like. These words could come back to hurt me or whatever. I might eat these words later, but I'm pretty confident that it's not going to matter. So that basically is your recent form course history. I mean, we already went through course history, your best recent form golfers coming into this, you know, Homa, Oosthuizen. We already know we're not playing Homa. Oosthuizen, Fitzpatrick, Casey, and Hovland. If we were to look at the buckets, you know, recent form, your number one bucket is here, but you know, if we're looking at the best recent form golfers, don't shy away. We see one inside the top 10 frequently, you know, at least one, a maximum of 3. And on average, we have 6.88 usually in the field that have this good of recent form. So if we're looking at 2021, we have 5 golfers, so pretty close to that average. I'm gonna say it's gonna be edging closer to the 1, maybe 2 inside the top 10. I really like Fitzpatrick, but obviously it's hard to go against Hovland. Like 3 top 5 finishes, that's insane. Definitely consider that. But yeah, I don't know if I could see playing 2 of those guys, maybe even, I don't know. I don't think I'm gonna play 3, but I could see playing 2. I think it's going to be terrible, and Max Homa might come back and haunt me. The 20 to 40 was your second bucket. Sung Jae lives here, so does Rory, Tyrrell Hatton, Francesco. A lot of good golfers. What was the min-max on that one? So looking at recent form, 20 to 40, 2 to 6. So, I mean, yeah, you could get a lot of good golfers out of this. Your min-max is 2 to 5 on that 40 to 60. Not terribly too many golfers in this bucket, but Cam Davis, Mark Leishman, Jordan Spieth, Sam Burns. I mean, the min-max is 2 to 6. You could make a lineup of 6 golfers here. I don't know. A lot of good golfers are coming out of this bucket, so I have no issue with saying, you know, maybe you do want to play 3 to 4 of these guys. It would make sense. If you can fit them in your salary, absolutely. We do know 40 to 60 shows up a lot, but we also know that 40 to 60 is there's 41 golfers in this bucket this year. Just want to validate the numbers show up the same down here. Yeah, 41 golfers. One thing to note that I want to do really quickly, I would pay attention to the averages that you see over here, because if one of these numbers is larger or smaller, it's most likely due to COVID. You know, we don't have a lot of new rookies on tour, so we're not having a lot of golfers in this no range, either no recent form or no course history. Instead, those numbers are just adding to the rest of the buckets. It looks like a lot of the missed cuts, and this has been happening throughout every single tournament. As I've been looking at this, that number usually gets higher because we don't have new guys coming in here. So either way, yeah, 41 is what I was looking for. It validates, and we can anticipate somewhere between 2 to 5. I think. I mean, how much bigger is this than usual? So 41, average is 42. So it's like right on the button, right on the money. We do see 2 happen once, but it's averaging around 4. There's a lot to play with, a lot to look at. I mean, you have Hideki in this bucket. I like Alex Noren. I said don't play Matthew Neesmith because his Bermuda stats are not good. We have Luke List here, Tommy Fleetwood, Ricky Fowler's here, Bryson is even here, and Sebastian Munoz, Justin Rose, Taylor Gooch. I do like. Siwoo Kim, Zach Johnson, Peter Malnati maybe. Yeah, I like a lot of these guys. A lot of younger guys too. Robbie Shelton, I don't mind. 6,300. I mean, I'll look further into it, but I suppose not. Course history does not look good. So yeah, I kind of did a little run through. Let's see who's in the 60 and worse. Now, this bucket here is actually your third ranked bucket, although 5% show up inside the top 10 overall. You got to be cautious of that. This one is more or less trying to find a needle in the haystack. I'm thinking we're going to see some notable one or two notable golfers. I can't remember who. Harris English is here. There's one. HV3, I've not really been a fan of his since the beginning of the restart. I know he's a fan favorite, but he just has not been playing very good golf. There's that Keith Mitchell guy that we were talking about earlier. I feel like, there we go, Doc Redman. 6,400 is not terrible. I mean, that's where he should be priced for how bad he's been playing recently. I don't think I'm going to get to him. Cameron Champ even lives down here. Oof. Henrik Stenson. Oh, he has no recent form average. Again, I only look at the PGA Tour stats. I do not look at anything European. So if there have been starts that they've had, I'm sorry, I don't have those European stats. So that's enough looking at recent form and course history. Let's go ahead and actually go back into the buckets, look at last year, last week, and then we can use the DK page to actually go through a lot of that information. Your number one bucket for last year, golfers who finished top 20. It just kind of goes hand in hand with the course history bucket of 1, or the 1 to 20. So obviously, when those two mesh together, course history, super important. We have a min max of 3 to 5. So finding 3 golfers who've top 20 here last year will be one of my priorities, trying to create a lineup like that, starting that way, and then trying to fill it out all the way down. The next bucket would be your did not plays, who did not play this tournament last year. So that actually helps, like with a Jordan Spieth, or any of the other guys that might have good course history and did not play here last year. You can also see what their top 10 percentages. It's actually the top 10% in that bucket. So obviously, again, we look at the totals, everyone here, divide it by the number we see there. That's what gives us our 22%. So that's really good. 22% is good. 17 is actually really good too. And that's your last year bucket 3 golfers. So there's a little bit more confidence selecting those golfers than, say, any of these guys here, but I also just wouldn't choose a lot of those guys. Do we see any really big changes when it comes to year? I think right here, your did not plays, again, we talked about this being a COVID-related incident. These numbers just flip. It was pretty even. Obviously, take 8 from there, add it to there, and that's where you get those numbers, essentially. So we see more missed cuts. I'm assuming we're probably going to see a few more of those. I don't know why this is colored this way. I hate seeing these. I even spent a little time updating them. Pet peeve of mine, might not bother you guys. I get it. But either way, the number 4 bucket would be golfers who missed the cut. We might see this number be a little higher. Finding a golfer who did miss the cut, don't worry about it. It's not terrible. If you want to anchor your lineups around that, I don't see any issue with it. Last week bucket, your number 1 bucket by far are golfers who did not play. Thankfully, there aren't a lot of people. Actually, this is going to account for, in the last week bucket this year, it does include golfers from the WGC Workday Championship as well as the Puerto Rico Open. So it's going to include both of those tournaments as the last week stat. So I understand one tournament has a higher strength of field than the other, those stats are still going to matter here, and it will be really interesting to see what it looks like in the review, to see what all the top 10 finishes were like. But yeah, your number one bucket did not play. Like, it's overwhelming. Almost 50% of all top 10s fall under this bucket. We could probably dial it back. Obviously, there are less number of golfers in this field that fall. I'm sorry. Either way, it still shakes out the same. There are less by far in the field with the did not play. So I'm not going to rate it as high. I probably would look at your 1 to 20s, and then maybe the missed cuts. I don't know. It's going to be kind of a little mixed model, but I mean, this will be my highest confidence one, and then I will actually select some guys who did not play last week. Jordan Spieth did not play last week. That's a good reason to maybe play Jordan Spieth. And I don't know. There are other golfers we could choose from too. But yeah, number one last year bucket, 1 to 20. Number two are golfers who did not play. 3 is 20 to 40. If we look at last week buckets, your number one bucket did not play. So, highlight some golfers that did not play. Put them in your player pool. Don't think twice about it. Number two bucket for last week would be golfers in the 1 to 20. Again, pick 1 to 2. Don't look back. And then mix it up between your 3s and your 4s. The guys who missed the cut last week, or guys who finished that 20 to 40 position, especially at like the workday, because that would have been easy for a lot of these guys. Let's go ahead and actually look at some of these buckets. So I do have the last week buckets here. We already went through course history. We already went through recent form. I don't need to present those to you guys, but I can go ahead and sort this out by last year one. I mean, the dark color is all color coded based off of the last year bucket, because it's usually the most important bucket. You can see it is by well, actually it's not. Let's go by salary and then by bucket. So we have a lot of our top guys here who finished top 20 last year. Obviously, this is a bucket. We want to select somewhere between 2 to 4 golfers. Top 20, you're typically not having more than 20 golfers in it. This is actually 21, so we had a tie, obviously. We had 21 golfers tie for top 20. That's not how it's supposed to be said, but you guys get the gist. So yeah, selecting, I think it's going to be easy to select 3 of them. We could take a quick look to see in 2020. Let me pull the 2020 DK page is up. Sung Jae was 9,500. Rory was 11,800. Then we had Keith at 66. And I'm looking at all the last year ones that finished inside the top 10. Sung Kang at 68. Matthew Fitzpatrick at 8,500. I don't know if 2019 does have the buckets as well. So Rory, your top guy, 11,400. Luke List, 7,900. Benny Ann at 7,500. And then some other guys down here. But you see another 8,600, another 6K. Someone in the 7. So kind of that little balanced build. I think, again, starting with Rory, I don't think is going to be an issue. We will actually get into salaries right after this to kind of validate who we should and shouldn't play. I mean, help validate, not so much just right there say, hey, you can't play these guys because of the price range. But yeah, 11,500, not terrible. And then finding somewhere around that 8K range, I don't know if it's going to be Harris English for me. And I don't even know if it's going to be Mark Leishman. But it's tempting, I guess. Finding someone that's 7.5K or 7.5. I really don't like these guys either. I like Fowler. I think Fowler could be a good play this week. Same with Gooch. Like, I don't mind Taylor Gooch here. Decent grass stats. It all works for me. In the 6K range, I'm going to stay away from Joel Damon. Keith Mitchell obviously has a bunch of good finishes, but I think I'm more pessimistic when it comes to continuous good finishes for someone who is so volatile. But yeah, 12.5%. He won at the Honda. This could be the time of the year that Keith Mitchell just gets hot. I suppose I shouldn't take that away from him. Tom Hoagie's interesting. He does fit the grass stat model that works. So does Dylan Fratelli, as does Sung Kang, and so does Danny Lee. Danny Willett does not, though. Neither does Joel Damon. Brendan Todd barely does. Christian Bezuidenhout does not. He only has 5 events, but either way, those were your last year ones. Last year two's going to be pretty large. 42 golfers in this bucket, so it's going to be a little bit more difficult to choose from. Last year bucket 2, min max is 1 to 5. We only saw 5 once, so it averages out to be 3 on the button. So finding 3 golfers from here might be the play. I mean, we have Jordan Spieth, Paul Casey, Louis Oosthuizen. They're all 3 fantastic golfers. Same with Francesco. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it drops off considerably. So, I mean, these are a lot of the, golfers who got some kind of sponsor invite or something like that. I'm not going to play Paul Goydos. I'm not going to play Tim Herron. Those are easy cross-offs. I know some guys were talking about Matthias Schmid this year or this week. Obviously, John Augenstein's a pretty decent golfer. Yeah, I don't know. You might be able to find, a long shot down here. Going to your last year 3s, if we were to take a look, min-max is 1 to 4, 17% top 10. So if we were just to do the math on that, so 12, you can just say 2 of these guys are going to finish inside the top 10, maybe. I'll do like Billy Horschel, Sam Burns. I mean, a lot of good golfers actually in here that I don't mind. Lonto Griffin, Kevin Na. I'm going to stay away from Max Homa. Maybe not a lot of good golfers. I probably I just highlighted all the only good ones. Last year 4s, we have Jason Day, Tommy Fleetwood, Kevin Kisner, Justin Rose. So a lot of good golfers here. If we look at our min-maxes for our last year 4s, it's 1 to 3. Averages out to be 1.7. I always round down when it comes to buckets. So out of that group of golfers here, the bucket is 34 golfers deep. I think, what is that on average? This doesn't seem right. Uh-oh. This could actually be... This could be wrong. Let's see. No, that's looking at the right guys. So what am I looking at? What's going on? Last year 4s, 34 deep, and those are missed cuts. Oh. I need to change that bucket. Oh, no. These stupid ranks. Oh man, they got me. Yeah, last year bucket 4s are missed cuts. This is just, this rank here is going, this happened last week as well. So the number is pretty similar to every single year. Yeah, 34, okay. Yeah. Actually, no, it's higher. So the frequency of finding someone inside the top 10 is probably going to be a little bit better. I apologize for that. Really confused the crap out of me there. So finding 1 to 2 might be the way to go. What this should help you understand is some of these guys you just need to fade. I mean, I could see 3 of these guys finishing inside the top 10. That's totally doable, but do you think it's going to be those 3? Probably not. I'm definitely going to limit my golfers in this pool. I mean, I like Munoz just in principle. I do like Alex Noren. I do like Fleetwood. I already told you I can't trust Jason Day. So yeah, a lot of golfers in here. A lot of people like Brian Stewart. Maybe not this week, but usually a lot of people reach out to me. You got to play Stewart. You got to play Stewart. Maybe not this week. Your last year 5s. Victor Hovland shows up as a last year 5. And looking at last year 5s, Nothing really changed in the total amount of golfers. Oh my God, I'm looking at the last year 5 wrong again. 40 to 60. 40 to 60. Yeah, nothing really has changed. It's usually 13% of the field, which is pretty similar. 123 golfers, we have 10, so very close. Not quite that 13% number. 0 to 2, 7% find the top 10. Victor Hovland is a good enough golfer to do so, but maybe this is how we throw caution to the wind. And Hideki Matsuyama, having those two guys as your last year 5s, to me, I'm not pairing them up together. If I do have FOMO, it's just going to be one lineup, but I'm definitely not going to, I'm not going to combine these guys as my anchor golfers. And obviously, Keegan Bradley, I was showing you, he had that 100% cut made percentage. He might be worth a play, or maybe not, because he falls under this bucket. Yeah. Interesting. And then here, Wyndham Clark, Doc Redman, golfers that I think we all like, but not showing up the greatest when it comes to this. The frequency that they finish inside the top 10, 4%. And usually that bucket only has 6 golfers in it. So we have 4, meaning there's less. We're more likely not finding these guys inside the top 10. So I think they can be automatic fades down here. So yeah, that is a wrap up of the bucket system. That was, more going into every single bucket and showing you every range with every golfer in it, which I think is more helpful, in these videos than me spending 10 minutes explaining what the buckets are. I do want to do that. I do want to show you as much data as possible. I do want to show you the analysis that comes with it. And the last piece here is going to be looking at the historical salaries. So what I do here is I capture all of the salaries. You can see right here. I mean, I'm a little in the way, but I capture all the salaries right there. Throw them, find the average of the winner, average of top 5 salary, average of top 10. 8,200 is your average salary within the top 10. All that's saying is the cream usually rises to the top at this tournament. I've seen this number as low as 7,700. I've seen it as high as 8,800 at the Masters. Usually, DraftKings allows 8,300 for your average salary position. This is saying don't feel bad for using all 50,000 in your salary, basically. When it's really that close to 8,300, definitely don't worry about it. And then we kind of have a little box here with basically the frequency of how frequent. There we go. That any of these price ranges shows up in the top 5 or top 10. So basically, you just go down and then over, and you're gonna find the information, of where they fall or how frequently they finish inside the top 5 or top 10. Here's a percentage of, this is just versus the top 10. So 11K versus the rest of the guys, or the rest of the price ranges, shows up 7% over the last 3 years where DraftKings has had salaries, or that I've been playing DraftKings. Nearly 8%, I should say. Same applies to with that 10K to 11K. Now, this is only looking at top 10. Everyone who's ever finished inside the top 10 over the last 3 years and what their price range is. If we go down here and look at the bucket, the analysis down here, we had 6 total golfers that were 11K and above over the last 3 years. 3 of them finished inside the top 10. So we have a 50%, I would call it a conversion rate of finishing inside the top 10 with an 11K and above golfer. If we look at the top 5, that's 33.33%. So it's pretty decent. That alone is the best suited bucket for salaries to choose a golfer from. And this year, I think we have only 2 golfers, Bryson and Rory, that are 11K. So anchoring your guys around either of those two, probably not going to be a bad idea. 34.21% of top 10s over the last 3 years have fallen under that 7 to 8K range. So that is a pretty big deal. I forgot to actually set these. I got distracted because I noticed that it is not looking at everything I need it to do. So you guys can see what this looks like. Pretty crazy, right? We can go there and sort. I have salaries going to $15,000, and that is because of the Masters 3 years ago, I think, or no, 4 years ago. I think Rory was at $15,000. So might as well keep track of all of them. You can see the most common salary inside the top 10, the most common salary inside the top 5. You can obviously see that information here as well. I know I'm a little in the way, but when it comes to salaries, I think really you're actually that 8 to 9K range, 28% of everyone that was in the 8K range, 28% found the top 10. So that's a pretty good range to select from. Not very good with top 5, so maybe the play is finding someone 11K or 10K, dropping to 8K. Even the 9K range is good. So a lot to play around with. Yeah, it's going to be fun creating lineups. I did a lot of extensive work on the optimizer. Part of the reason why I didn't do so well at the Workday, the WGC Workday Championship, was because I basically blindly used the optimizer, and I did not have a function on there that allowed me to make sure I had a minimum amount of golfers. You know, like why that would come into play is Colin Morikawa, I had my max exposure set to like 30%. The optimizer picked him in one lineup. And it's because it's looking at whatever metric that I'm using and trying to find, with the constraints, the bucket system constraints, what is the most optimal lineup. And it fell in love with Jon Rahm and Xander. So what I did this week, I really wanted to avoid that happening again. Somebody actually, if you play any of the quarter games, JP Losman, he had mentioned, you know, building lineups is a little bit of both of science and art, whereas the art is you handcrafting some lineups and the science is using your system or your process to build lineups. And I thought that was a fantastic way of explaining or providing. If I were to explain to you guys the best way to create a lineup, I think that'd be it. I do need to think about, you know, handcrafting no matter what. I don't think there's going to be a robot that's going to give us the best optimal lineup. A lot of it comes with the eye test, and I think that's kind of the missing piece for me. I used to hand build lineups. Like, honestly, what I would do is just go right into my lineup construction page, because I create a page that you could hand craft lineups. I haven't really been using this since I've created the optimizer. I actually was using this earlier today to test out my optimizer to try to find thresholds of what I can and can't own. But basically what I would do is I would hand look at my buckets here and see, oh, Rory was a 1-3. I put him there. It's 10-4 or whatever. And maybe I do like Colin Morikawa, but just the eye test alone, looking at the last week bucket, I wouldn't have liked. But knowing other pieces of information why you should have played them would have, you know, steered me away from those thoughts. But yeah, I would go through here and say I wanted Colin Morikawa in 10% of my lineups. If I'm making 100, I would just click and drag down 10. I'm sure a lot of you other guys out there that do spreadsheeting, you know exactly what this looks like. And then I would also keep track of how often I'm playing one guy with another and that kind of stuff. My Wednesday nights from like 6 p.m. to 2 in the morning usually would consist of doing this. I needed to eliminate that out of my lifestyle. So that's why I came up with the optimizer. And I love that optimizer. It can see things I can't see. So putting constraints on based off of the bucket system, you know, like last year's sixes for this year, it's going to have a maximum of 1. I'm never going to select more than 1 last year 6. I can also put my minimum for last year, or course history 1s to 3. We know course history is a big deal, and I can select that. So I love the optimizer by that, but I should actually eyeball test it, create a few lineups that way, and then finish it off with the rest of the automation. But those are just my final thoughts when it comes to this tournament. I really do feel like I am getting more in a stride with doing this. A lot of my process now, trying to get these videos set up for you guys, are automated. I've been spending a lot of time trying to make it easier for me, because I still have a database I need to put together. I still want to get a website out there for you guys. I do want to be able to provide you the optimizer. So there's a lot of things that I'm doing all at once, and I'm still supporting a 9-to-5 job. So that has nothing to do with fantasy golf whatsoever. So time is of the essence. But I think finally I can go through a lot of this faster. I know I'm spending an hour with you guys right now, but that's by choice. I wanted to explain this one in full. I like long form conversations. I did for a while try to figure out, does a 30-minute video appeal more to my audience than an hour long video? And I think one of my most viewed videos is over an hour long. And I just had one not too long ago that was like 40 minutes long. That was still good, but it doesn't appear to matter. So that's just my 2 cents. If you actually do have any recommendations, like you want me to get through this faster, you want me to eliminate some of the things that I've talked about, let me know. I love criticism. Like, obviously try to keep it constructive. Destructive criticism never helps anybody, but if it was constructive, no problem. If you were to tell me, hey, I love your effort, but some of this stuff just goes in one ear and out the other, I'll do my best to provide a easier way of understanding or a more concise way of explaining, one of the two. But either way, I do appreciate you guys. If you're listening all the way to right now, I appreciate it to hell. Like, seriously, thank you guys for watching. And I do want to hear anything you guys have to say. It's a community, right? We want to make this better for all of us. So either way, with that, I will call it an end. Thank you guys for watching. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe, all of that good stuff, and I'll see you in the strategy video tomorrow. All right, bye.